Our book, Sober Evolution, Evolve into Sobriety and Recover Your Alcoholic Marriage, is finally being turned into an audiobook, Sheri. Are you excited?
Yeah.
The narrator finally got off his ass and recorded all the chapters. It's about time. It's going to be an audiobook on Audible. It's in final editing right now, out of our hands. Mm-hmm. And we are excited to be offering a promo code for free access to our audiobook on Audible to the first 10 partners or former partners of alcoholics who go to echoesofrecovery.org and take our 1-minute survey to find out if you belong in Echoes of Recovery. All you have to do is put the word audiobook in the optional share your story part of the survey. That is at echoesofrecovery.org. We've already had takers.
Nice.
But there's still room for more. We have not reached 10 yet. We're not actually close to 10 yet. So there's plenty of room for more. So
we've had takers. What?
Two. More than 0. I'll just say that. Come and get your free audiobook. Go to echoesofrecovery.org. Take the survey and put audiobook in the share your story part.
Wow, free book. That's the sweet spot in your price range. Freebie.
That's how I like it.
Free.
Seems like
cheap and easy.
Anything more than that is too much. It seems like. Yeah, I love that. Sheri, This morning, we have 4 kids, and we have lived for 20 years now in a house with 2 bathrooms. Mm-hmm. And we've made that work, the 6 of us, yes. No problem.
Yes.
But we have grown, and our kids have grown to the point where, well, I hope we haven't grown. We've stayed basically the same.
We've grown a little.
We've aged.
It's called perimenopause. I've grown.
But we're down to 3 people. Instead of 6 people using 2 bathrooms, we're down to 3 people using 2 bathrooms, and you'd think that'd be a lot easier.
It's much harder.
I think the freedom involved with the fact that there is a 2/3 chance that there's going to be a free bathroom at all times, something like that.
Yeah.
I think that has made it. Actually, you think it's harder?
That's what I was saying this morning. I mean, I didn't even have my hair combed from being wet this morning because of, I don't know what has happened. Thursday mornings and Sunday mornings when we all need to be out at the same time.
Why was your hair wet? Was it the Thursday morning swirly?
No, I showered.
You showered, okay.
But I don't know why I didn't think that. You were pretty much already out the door when I showered because you got bumped around. I think it's like we are like, oh, well, there's going to always be a bathroom. Well, no, there's not always.
Yeah.
But 3 of us is making it much harder than it needs to be.
That's so interesting. That ties into our topic for today, how as things have societally gotten easier, they're weighing on us more. We'll get into that in a minute. But, oh my God, that's so interesting when it should statistically prove to be the fact that there's more bathroom availability. It's actually harder to get a bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're just being lazy and I can sleep in a little bit longer.
Well, we used to kind of schedule it. Everyone had their window.
Well, that's why when you had to go to the bathroom and you were in there too long, I'd be like, time's up, buddy. Push it out. Come on, your time is up. I had the no phone in the bathroom rule for the boys. I didn't want anybody looking at their phone while they're sitting on the toilet. We had a schedule.
Yes. Well, this morning, the bathroom that I normally use where my towel lives was occupied.
Yeah.
And it was occupied in such a way that I didn't even want to stick my hand in there and get my towel. So I just used the bathroom that you pretty much should have to yourself now because 2 of us use one bathroom and you use the other one primary.
Yeah.
And since I didn't have my towel and I just was lazy and didn't want to get a new towel, I just used your towel.
I noticed that.
And I thought this will be a little bit of an experiment to see what Sheri thinks about me using her towel. For our listening audience and not our viewing audience, you just did the gag reflex. Pretty good gag reflex. I actually asked you afterwards. I said, I want you to know I used your towel.
You didn't ask me. You said, I want you to know I used your towel. You made a statement.
You're right. And but then I think I said,
you just left it at that.
Oh, I know what it was. Later, after you had showered, I said, so did you get a new towel? And you sheepishly said yes. No sharing for you.
I don't think it was meant to be sheepish. I meant it was to be like, well, of course I got it.
Of course I got it.
What, are you crazy?
So I'm driving to my appointment this morning and I'm thinking to myself, that's so interesting to me. No towel sharing, But as Leanne Morgan says when she talks about Chuck, Leanne Morgan, the comedian, talks about how when Chuck gets a little randy, he wants to do something nasty. He wants me to do something nasty to him. You're willing to engage with me in, a little nasty. But you won't share a towel.
The towel is seeing places that I don't see, so that's
okay.
why. But even if it was a baby that used the towel, I would have gotten another one. But
what places do I have that you haven't seen?
Okay,
that you don't spend time hanging out.
I don't spend time. And then they get nasty part of it all. Like, I don't visit that part. But the towel did to dry off. And I'm, again, if it was a newborn baby that was clean coming out of there, I would still get a new towel. And I don't understand why. You don't have to do laundry. So you don't have to be thrifty and cheap and frugal about how many towels get washed.
Oh, if
but
I was
there was a stack of towels right outside the bathroom door.
We would change our towels once a year, whether they needed it or not, if I was in charge of laundry. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We're glad I'm not. I wonder if there's any first-time listeners to the Untoxicated podcast that are still listening at this point. I wanted that to be a little edgy, but I think that went a little bit further than I had planned.
Well, you're the one that brought it up.
I did. Well, I just love Leanne Morgan so much, and I know you do too.
You just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I did. Something nasty.
Southern voice.
Oh, it's not just Southern. It's Tennessee. It's very specific. It's like the perfect, twang. Perfect twang. Mm-hmm. Oh, just love her so much. Sheri, I want to talk about generational trauma for a second. We talk a lot about generational trauma on the podcast here. We talk about how alcoholism gets handed down from generation to generation. There are reasons that happens. I don't want to go into that right now. We've talked about that many times. There's another thing about generations that I think is toxic that I do want to talk about. Older generations struggle to learn from younger generations because if they were to learn from younger generations, they have to admit they don't know everything. So, and I know that that's the way it was in my house growing up. That's what I witnessed. That's how I was conditioned. And it took a lot for me to break away from that. This is also a topic we're going to come back to later in the podcast. But to show genuine interest in something my kids knew and had learned about, and not be like, well, maybe that's what you think, but I think blah, 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 blah. Just like freaking shut my mouth and learn from them. Even if it was a topic that I had some level of insight about, just learn and listen and absorb. That's a really hard thing to do. But it's a really great thing to do because of what it does for the self-confidence of the next generation. You're much better naturally at it than I am. You're always interested in what they have going on.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, like, if I grew up with much interest from my elders.
I know, I can say this about your side of the family. You and I have tried to present information to your elders. I'm going to be generic. And it has been strongly rejected. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's just my side of the family.
Yeah, I didn't mean it that. I just thought, I've never really thought of that.
Well, if you're listening, listener, and you're thinking, you know what? Maybe this guy, maybe there's some logic to what he's talking about. Maybe I don't give enough credit to my kids to appreciate what they think and appreciate their opinions and their experiences. Here's a great way for you to open that door and give your adult kids the self-confidence of knowing that their opinions matter. Would you please share our newest survey? See how I came around to that? Share our survey about attraction and relationship dynamics. You can be found at stigmasurvey.org. We are particularly in need of responses from people in the 18 to 29 age category. Mm-hmm. If you're older than that and you want to take it, please, by all means, the more the merrier. But we do have a lot of responses, a significant number of responses from people outside of that category. What we really need is those 18 to 29-year-olds. So if you want to think of a way, or let me present to you a way that you can say to your young adult kids, hey, your opinion matters. This chucklehead and his wife are trying to figure out stuff about relationships and attraction post-COVID in this new world we live in where the old survey information is just completely useless at this point. And if you want to help them out, I recommend you share your opinion because son, daughter, your opinion is valuable. Mm-hmm. And I know that you can contribute to this research and have an impact. So you can take it or you can send it to your kids. Relationship status doesn't matter. You can be married for 3,000 years or you can be single and dating or not dating, doesn't matter. Attraction and relationship dynamics, stigmasurvey.org. Especially send that to adults 18 to 29. Thank you very much. Sheri, always be dating. ABD. That's something I've been, pushing on for a little while here. Mm-hmm. I heard, always be dating is all about showing emotional maturity, creating an environment of emotional safety within relationships, and the degree to which that will help partnerships stay together if both people are respectful and they're able to be calm and themselves and relaxed and know that their partner is going to create emotional safety for them. That's so important. I was listening to a podcast that was about minimum wage and basic minimum income. It was really interesting. I love these and this one had a historical bent on it. It wasn't about like, what should we do now? It was about how has this been addressed in the past? And one of the experts being interviewed was University of Manitoba professor of economics, Evelyn Forget. She gave me a little history lesson, Sheri. Back in the late 60s, there were experiments done here in the United States, but also in Canada about, basically this concept of basic minimum income. In the US, the experiments were actually led by the Nixon administration with support of conservative economist Milton Friedman. And they didn't want to call it minimum basic income, and it really wasn't. It was a floor under income, money for working families. So if you were working, but despite your 40 hours a week, you still couldn't make enough to survive, their proposal was to, enhance that a little bit. And the reason the conservatives were on board was because this plan would be in place of lots and lots of other government interventions that basically do the same thing, but that are convoluted, and there's 100 of them, and it's complex. And so the reason conservatives were on board was because it reduces the size of government. Let's just have one thing to support people who can't make ends meet despite the fact that they're working. So you had the US coming at it from a conservative angle. In Canada, the experiments were done in Manitoba, and they were done definitely with kind of guidance and push from liberals. And so, humanitarian bent to it. And so, the politics isn't important other than to understand that both sides of the political spectrum were involved in these experiments. And so we can look at this as not a political thing. The reason I wanted to bring it up on the podcast is because in both cases, it seems that there was a side effect in the experimental groups where they increased the income levels of people. There was a side effect that the divorce rate went up. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
Now, this Evelyn Forget says there might have been statistical errors in the computation that were found later. Might or might not. But the initial investigation resulted in this side effect of an increase in the divorce rate. And I think that is so interesting because I'm wondering, now this is just conjecture, this wasn't part of the study, but when women felt that they were financially more secure, it seems, and this is the 60s, right? So the man was working and the woman was dependent. When the woman had a little more security, the divorce rate went up. That's what my ears hear in this side effect of this statistical information. And what I want to ask you is, you and I meet a lot of people. We understand the dynamics of a lot of relationships. And, in marriages with a lack of emotional safety, which can come from either active alcoholism, emotional abuse, things like that. Even once sobriety takes place, there still can be emotional abuse for years or forever. In those situations, doesn't it seem like finances are the single biggest limiting factor of the woman moving on, taking the kids and getting out of there?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, do you think that this idea of a floor under income, as Nixon called it, or basic minimum income, as the other side often describes it, that can free the financially dependent party up to make the right emotionally safe decision for her family and not stay in a toxic environment?
Absolutely. I mean, not just a financial monthly income, but like when I think about insurance, like providing health insurance for your kids on maybe a part-time job because you still need to be the primary caregiver and you can only find a part-time job that works for your schedule. I mean, they're not going to provide health insurance, or it's going to be a lot of money for privatized insurance. So I think of just those sort of things. But I mean, I know there were many times where I was like, oh my gosh, like we are so financially intertwined. But even if we were to separate and divorce and like I don't know how that would have worked. Like would we have sold our business that we own together, or would you have quote unquote bought me out / bought me off? Like, but I don't know if I would have felt confident enough to be able to earn enough income to still be a working single mother, even if I had your help. I don't know if I would have been able to find a job or felt confident enough to be able to find a job, and then providing health insurance and providing those sort of things, like all of our kids had braces. Like you've got to, all of us think of those things. I mean, we've met so many people from our Echoes of Recovery group that felt stuck because of the finances, because they have chosen to be the stay-at-home parent, or we have some families that homeschool their kids, so primarily it's the mother that's doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to work and then having to pay somebody for childcare, or pay the before and after care for nursery school or elementary school age kids. It's very, very scary and very, very hard to think about how you're going to juggle all this.
I want to be clear about
even if you have a college degree.
Yeah, well, I want to be clear about a couple of things. One is what we have seen, 527 case studies and growing, all these relationships that we've learned about, when usually the woman makes the really difficult decision to divorce, even when there is not financial security and it is tenuous and scary at best. That woman has every intention of going back to work, mm-hmm. and usually does. In every single case I can think of, does. I can't think of a single case where the woman just figures out a way to live off welfare. Like, that's not the demographic we work with. So maybe that means they need to get some continuing education, some recertification. Maybe they're in a healthcare profession. I'm thinking of a few specific instances where their certifications have lapsed. Mm-hmm. And so while they're going through that process, that's the really tenuous, scary period. But once they get back recertified, then they're back to work. Like, it's not like you and I can't think of a single woman I've met who just wants to live off the fat of the land. She wants to work, but that scary period of transition is really, really difficult to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so, I want to make that really abundantly clear that I haven't met a single woman who just doesn't understand and agree that she needs to go back to work. The other point I want to make really clear is I am a firm believer in the importance of self-esteem and self-confidence for recovery from alcoholism, whether you're the drinker or the loved one of the drinker. And there is a huge amount of self-esteem and self-confidence that comes from work, from contributing to society. And so I am not pitching this as some kind of political stab at making a plug for basic minimum income. That's not where I'm coming from at all. I think it's exceedingly important that people work and contribute for their mental health, regardless of the financial impact of that. So any program that encourages and incentivizes people to stay home and not work, I think should be restructured so that the incentive is to get out there and work and contribute. And so that's where I'm coming from. I don't want someone to be like, oh, these goddamn liberals are, side door promoting something again.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not what this is about at all.
I took the job at our church. We had a business together. I worked in the bakery for a couple, 2 to 3 days a week here and there. There were times where I didn't work at all because we were just outnumbered with children, and it just made it a lot more logical that I stayed home.
Well, you worked at home.
But I worked in the home, and but I know, like, I was going through a really low period, and there was this opportunity for the director of children's ministries that opened up at our church, and you are the one that really encouraged me to do that because you knew that I needed something else. You understood this, and this is even when you were drinking, and you were supposedly the most selfish, point in your life. But I think that you understood that I needed something for myself, something that gave me pleasure. I already worked in a lot of those things in the church, so I might as well get paid for it if I'm gonna be there and volunteering. And we had kids that I really wanted to see the kids program succeed. You were the one that encouraged me to do that. So then I did feel like I had something on my own because I often felt like our bakery that we ran together was really run by you. And us working together caused a lot of tension.
Well, because of kids and because of the way we chose to structure the hours, I was there 60 plus hours a week, and you were there, like you said, a couple, 2 days a week, something like that. So it was really hard for that to be thought of as equitable distribution of decision making or anything like that, because, that's just, I had to make more decisions because I was there more. And then when you were there, contradicting my decisions would probably not have gone well for our marriage. So you did need something on your own.
Yeah.
And I had actually not planned to include that in this discussion, so I'm glad you brought that in. That was, anyone who knows about salaries at churches should know that was more of a self-esteem play than it was a financial play. Now, we're grateful for the money that you make, and it is important, but that was much more about you having something that you could be proud of on your own, for sure. Okay, good point. So getting back to this, my opinion has certainly changed over the years, and I want to ask you, the importance of family cannot be overstated for me and for you and for raising our kids. But I have, for most of my life and most of my adult life, been a believer that we need to do everything we can to keep families intact, because the intactness of the family is what's important to the mental health and the nurturing of the kids. And I have grown in recent years to understand that that's not necessarily true. Keeping families intact is great and wonderful and important, and it's something that should be emphasized, but not at the sacrifice of emotional safety and stable home environments. So Sheri, my question to you, if you had to choose between a mother and a father and kids living together into the same house, and maybe there's alcoholism, maybe there's not, but maybe there's a lack of emotional safety. So that's one choice. And your other choice is emotional safety in an environment where the family doesn't stay intact and there's a divorce. Which do you think is more important? As a non-medical professional, just as someone with 527 case studies under her belt.
I think that growing up in an emotionally safe environment creates such a better outcome for the children and the parent that's in that, that's being emotionally abused. I feel like that creates such a better environment that it's a obvious win to split the family up. You can be, with a lower income and a smaller house and a cheaper car, and you don't have the name brand clothes, and I think you'll come out on top as a teenager. There might be some nasty people out there that make fun, but I think in the long run, your self-esteem is going to be better, your mental health is going to be better. You're not going to turn to some substance to escape like the pain that you're living in if the house stays intact with an emotionally unstable environment.
Very well said. I said this is an opinion of a non-medical professional. I want to clarify, also not a non-medical or mental health.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you didn't do anything wrong. I introduced it and said.
Well, I just from my own personal experience, I see that there is a big difference between my sister and I. My sister is 6.5 years older than I am, and my mother stayed in the relationship with my father until I was 2, and then she was divorced. My sister was 8.5. So my sister saw a lot more as a toddler and preschooler and early elementary school kid of fights and arguments and my dad drinking than I did. And I think that just if you put us two next to each other, you could just tell that.
Yeah.
The anxiety that my sister has is so much greater than I have.
Yeah.
And she stayed in relationships a lot longer, and there was not change or sobriety because she had been so used to the red flags. And you know, it didn't bother her.
Yeah.
Whereas it bothered me, and it caused us arguments. And I'm not saying my sister didn't argue with her partners that were addicts, that she didn't try to get them to quit, but she just stayed a lot longer than, and you and I didn't get divorced, but I think you made the change.
Yeah.
Where she ended her marriage with her long-term addict after many more years of your active addiction and drinking.
Yeah. Well, your life experience is one of the things people tune in to listen to. So thank you for sharing not only your reaction to all the couples that we've met, all the relationships that we understand, but also your own life. I think that's really important. I think it's really interesting. I'm listening to this hour-long conversation about economics. If I had to do over again, if I was 18, I would go to college for economics, I think, because that's just such a kind of side interest of mine. And I'm listening to an economic-based historical, which that's the other thing, I love history, conversation, and they mention this divorce rate thing, and I'm like, oh my God. I
know why.
Yeah, and the divorce rate was literally 30 seconds out of the hour conversation. So I thought that was so interesting, and I appreciate you talking about it with me. Sheri, something has changed. Kids today are under unimaginable pressure. And I think this is one of those things, this is like when you start taking a medication and then a side effect hits and you have to take another medication to treat the side effect, and you end up on 6 medications. One of them's, you only need one of them, but you need the other 5 medications to deal with all the side effects from the first one and the kind of cascading side effects. We live in a time now where innovation should be making everything in life easier. But, because think about it. If you compare kids today to kids 50, 100 years ago, it's kids don't drop out of school and go to work at age 13, right? Kids finish high school at least. We have indoor plumbing now. Kids, if they want to, on a daily basis, can take a hot shower. There is an abundance of food because of farm policy from back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Yes, there is starvation, but starvation is a problem of logistics, not a problem of abundance nowadays. So there's an abundance of food. There's definitely an abundance of pleasure. I mean, the addiction economy, the dopamine economy is actually a huge problem now. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're in the pickle that we're in. But innovation should be making things easier. But kids are indisputably less mentally healthy and to a large extent less physically healthy than they used to be. When they used to have to struggle more, when there was less, when there was scarcity, there was real concern about survival. Kids, I understand that the life expectancy was lower and that we didn't have every medicine for every disease. So I'm not trying to paint a picture of the olden days like it was, glorious and there were no problems. But especially if we can focus on the mental health perspective, it's undeniably worse now to be a teenager and a young adult than it used to be from a mental health perspective. Something has happened. something has put these kids under unimaginable pressure. And I want to share our evidence that we have seen in our lives with our experiences with young people and propose what can be done about it. But first, before we do that, let's tell our listeners about our sponsors. We are supported, we're welcoming a new sponsor this week, Sheri. We are supported by Defining You. We all know how deeply alcoholism impacts not just the drinker, but the people who love the drinker the most. Living with someone struggling with alcohol can take a toll on your own health and well-being, and it's easy to lose yourself in the process.
But your health and wellness matters too, and Kathy, with Defining You, knows this firsthand. When the world around her became uncontrollable, Kathy's health was seriously impacted. And now, 3 years later, she has taken back her health and is helping others who often put themselves last.
Kathy is helping people know how they can improve their health because she understands how health can be impacted by stress and trauma. She's helping them to feel stronger and healthier and more at peace. Defining You is not only a podcast covering a variety of topics based on real-life experiences, but Kathy also offers wellness coaching programs to help loved ones of alcoholics reclaim their energy, confidence, and joy. She gets what you're going through, and together, through simple, personalized programs, Kathy helps shift your focus on restoring balance, improving your sleep, losing weight, boosting your energy, and helping you feel like yourself again, even in the middle of life's challenges.
Your health and peace of mind matter, and taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's essential. And you don't have to stay stuck in survival mode. You can rise, heal, and thrive.
I like that. Rise, heal, and thrive. If you're ready to feel better inside and out, email Kathy at definingyouconnection@gmail.com. I'll say that again, definingyouconnection@gmail.com to schedule a complimentary consultation. You can also find Kathy at Defining You on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget to listen to the Defining You podcast everywhere you find your favorite podcasts. We are sponsored by SoberLink. SoberLink is the premier remote alcohol monitoring system, combining cutting-edge technology with compassionate design to support accountability in recovery and family law. You'll know when you know, Sheri. That applies to separation and divorce. It applies to effective emotional detachment. And it also applies to implementing SoberLink in your relationship or co-parenting situation. Nothing we say can or should convince anyone to make such important life changes. We can just present what we know from 527 case studies and counting and let people make their own decisions. But, and this is a big but.
Oh, you definitely know about being a big but.
I'm going to let that slide.
Sure.
When you do know, when you know, it is important to have the resources to implement change. That is why we talk about separation and divorce, and that is why we want to help people be ready to implement SoberLink when the time is right for them. SoberLink is handing out free offer IDs for a $100 enrollment bonus that can be used now or later when our listeners know it is time to implement SoberLink.
That's a $100 enrollment bonus for SoberLink's best-in-class service and production. Product in combination with built-in facial recognition, tamper detection, expert in-house support, reporting that is email daily, weekly, or monthly. It's also court admissible in all 40, good Lord.
How many states do we have these days,
we
Sheri?
have 50 now, I don't know. 50 states and Canada. Unlimited testing days and scheduled testing to build accountability and trust.
Now that we have 50 states, let's go to Hawaii. That sounds like fun. Enroll when and if you are ready, but right now, while this offer is still available, grab one of SoberLink's offer IDs for Intoxicated Podcast listeners for a $100 enrollment bonus. There's never been a better time to check out SoberLink.
That is on top of the fact that SoberLink now allows new customers to pay a monthly service charge as low as $19 per month with a qualifying monitoring plan, rather than paying a big upfront cost to purchase a device.
Claim your offer ID for a $100 enrollment bonus. There is no commitment required to claim your offer ID while this promotion lasts, and you can use your $100 enrollment bonus when you are ready, when you know. To claim your offer ID, You will only be asked to provide your name and email address, no personal details, no commitment, and no credit card number. To claim your offer ID for your $100 enrollment bonus, please go to soberlink.com/untoxicated. Okay, Sheri, we started talking about the pressure kids are under. I want to offer some evidence of that you and I have experienced. It's so interesting to me. I have always thought of what we do for a living as these separate little components. But more and more I'm realizing that they're all kind of merging together. And it makes me, I'm a believer. I'm a faithful guy. It makes me think there's maybe some divine intervention in these little pieces that you and I have glued together, and maybe they were meant to be together to begin with. So I coach high school soccer, have for many, many years now, and I'm experiencing something now post-COVID that I didn't used to experience. And I mean, I've been coaching various ages of youth soccer since I was a junior in college, so it's been a long time. I'm a little long on the tooth. So, but now I am seeing meltdowns about pressure that these kids are under, not just for grades, but pressure to do something incredible and have this outwardly amazing life. It's like, it's not enough to do what I thought was enough when I was that age, high school, college, find a partner, have a family, and find an occupation where we could survive. Like that was kind of, I had, what if I did something really cool? That'd be great, like it wasn't not on my radar, but it certainly wasn't. Like what I'm seeing in kids today is if I don't become some kind of fabulous creator, inventor, cure cancer, go to Mars, if I don't do one of those things, I'm a failure. Mm-hmm. That's the attitude that these kids have today. And it's terrifying to me to witness. I'm seeing kids, boys and girls, just kind of melt down about the pressure they're under, because every decision they make, every project they do, every club they join, every touch on the soccer ball on the soccer field, they think is going to impact this vision of success they have. And so if they make a mistake, I've made so many mistakes, it would be impossible to count. And, brush that right off and keep going. I believe they call that
on to another mistake.
I believe
because I think mistakes and there really aren't failures. They're just like learning experience. It's almost like I think it's called like the butterfly effect. Like the thing is like if you go back in time and you touch something that wasn't supposed to be touched, then the whole world is different when you come to the future. It's like that. They think if they mess up as a freshman in high school, it's going to affect them 30 years from now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. To some degree, because the internet is permanent, right? There are records of everything that you do in an online setting, and all these kids have been warned, don't put something out there that could embarrass you down the road. So I think that adds to the pressure. That's actually a really good point.
The TikTok and YouTube and all the videos that are out there, they very rarely show the failures. Like, how many times did it take that person to do that, jump on their, motorbike?
Yeah, before they landed it.
They don't ever, give the build-up. That's what we've tried to tell, our kids, too, is, do you know how many times they failed before they did that? Like, when we try to get our kids to, practice sports, they don't want to practice. They think they should just go out and be able to know how to do it. And I'm like, no, you've got to practice.
You're right.
It's not going to make you perfect, but it's going to make you better at the game and being more prepared for the game, when you go to play it. You're going to be, just more agile. You're going to be more comfortable, in soccer. You're going to be more comfortable with the ball the more you touch the ball.
What's
with your feet.
What's so interesting about what you're saying there is it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant. It doesn't matter if you're a parent. It all gets better with repetition and practice. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Even though this is my topic and I do want to talk about technology, that's an aspect of technology I hadn't thought about. It concerns me that when you see families, for instance, you only see the smiling vacation photos. You don't see what really happens in the background. Yeah, on Instagram, whatever. But yeah, you're right. The work that goes into that one successful shot.
Yeah.
There's this group, and I would love to give attribution, but I can't remember their name. I watched a documentary about them. They do all these trick shots, and like one of them
basketball trick shots.
Not always. Sometimes it's golf. Sometimes it's frisbee. Sometimes it's
basketball.
whatever. But I watched this documentary about them, and they're on top of some skyscraper trying to make a basketball shot from the skyscraper down to the parking lot below, and they had scheduled 3 days to do it, and they finally did it like on the last day or whatever. But it literally took, I don't know, 40 hours or something of just throwing basketballs over and over at this hoop.
And it wasn't just a team of 1-2 people. There were,
But
like
what they show,
involved
what goes on the internet and what goes viral is when they finally make the shot.
Right.
That's a really great point, Sheri. None of the effort. Nobody sees the effort anymore.
I see that and I think maybe it's because of the ages of our kids, like the distance between the oldest and the youngest, the video viewing and what reels and things like that had become more popular when our younger one is watching.
Yeah.
And that's why I constantly remind him. Remember, they did a lot of other things outside.
That's right.
Like he wants to sit down and just be able to knock something out on the piano, and I'm like, remember, the other person who did this really practiced a lot.
Yeah, that's right. So I have more evidence to add to my growing list. So I'm coaching college soccer players now, and men, and I've been shocked to see the degree to which there is sometimes there's a lack of resilience there too. I expected going from high school to college for it to be a different world. These are adults, but it's not. They're under, and some of the conversations, I'm just getting to know these guys, but some of the conversations I'm having already just demonstrate the level of stress. Now listen, college has always been stressful to a degree. It's supposed to be. I'm not saying we should skate through life, but I'm telling you, I went to college and I, had pressure for grades, and I had my first 2 years in college determined whether I'd get into the business school within the same institution, and determined whether I'd get to graduate with the degree I wanted or not. So I get it, right? I mean, I've been through it. I didn't perform particularly well, but I got my chin just over the bar into the business school, and then I tried to get kicked out. But anyway, that's another story. I feel like I'm familiar with what stress is supposed to feel like, and I'm here to tell you, testimony, what I'm seeing in these kids today is not the way it's supposed to be. They are under enormous, it's like they're responsible for world peace and curing cancer by the time they reach age 22 with an undergrad degree. It is not okay. And I can't, I've got some ideas what's causing it. You just added one to my list that I hadn't thought about. All they see is the successes. They don't see the hard work that goes into it. Excellent point, Sheri. It's definitely related to technology. There's no question in my mind. And a shift happened over COVID. For all of us, COVID and the shutdowns were disruptive and terrifying, and they impacted all of our lives. But for you and I, let's call that an 18-month period when it was really disrupted. 18 months divided by 50 years is not that much.
It's a fraction.
If you're 14 when that happens, or 12 or whatever, 18 months is a huge component of your life.
And at a very, these...
developmental age.
Yeah. These people right now that are in college right now, and the kids that are in high school, that was a developmental age.
It sure was.
I mean, the kids that were born or infants are now kindergartners, and I do have a job where I am working in the preschool and early education, and our daughter is an early education major. These are kindergartners and first graders, and teachers have never seen the kind of behaviors that they're experiencing.
Really?
Yes.
I did not even expect that to be a part of this discussion.
Just being
age.
Locked in and locked down and not having socialization.
Huh.
And there was probably a little bit more video watching and those sort of things for some of the older kids. And I'm not blaming parents, because you were doing what you had to do.
Right.
But it even is affecting these first graders and kindergartners who are the infants and the newborns of that COVID generation.
Let's talk about where this pressure comes from. We have 4 kids, and we have 3 sons, and our middle son is a freshman in college. Talk about what he went through this spring and summer leading up to going to college.
Well, he is a very, very smart kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's just never been one that has really enjoyed the education and the school system the way it's set up. He and I are very similar. Like, I would rather learn something by doing something. I think that's called a kinesthetic learner. Like, I like to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do like to read, but I like to read about things I'm interested in. And he's always been like that. He's a very personal kid. He got along great in school. He did well with his grades, I think, because he tried hard, but he really didn't like having a lot of the other things that he wasn't interested in. And so you and I kind of have recognized that for him. And, as it's coming to the end of his, junior year, we're trying to say, so, you have to kind of make some decisions, or at least let's talk about what you want to do post high school graduation. And he had kind of mentioned, like, maybe not going to college, maybe doing a technical school, maybe this, maybe that, maybe working. Construction's been something he's always been very curious about. When he was in high school, he had taken a lot of these medical classes that were offered through his high school. So he is a certified medical technician or medical assistant, CMA. He also.
Do you remember when he came home and he said
also
he wanted to draw blood from one of us? And
yes.
You can tell. Here's how you can tell the difference between a nurturing and a less nurturing parent. I was like, hell no, and you had your arms stuck out already. Here you go. My veins are pretty good on this side.
Yeah, so he was like, he was really into the medical thing, and I'm like, great, like medical, there's such a need for medical people out there. And I was like, because, so much of it could just be things where he wouldn't have to, like, have a, writing composition class. And so he's always been a kid that's wanted to try a bunch of stuff too. So we're like, listen, just try some things. And we're also like, but if you want to go to school or 4-year college or a 2-year college for an associate, whatever, like, we're trying to be really supportive, but the pressure sinks in.
And when you say the pressure, I think it's really fascinating where that pressure comes from. I think certainly there has been a building pressure for, so that was something that we were under too. I mean, when we were finishing high school in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, we were like I think the first generation that was really exposed to an expectation of college. Yeah. It wasn't like an option. It was more of an expectation. But I feel like that pressure has built to the point where it is completely unacceptable to think about anything but a 4-year college. I mean, I think about some of the signage in our local middle school that all of our kids went through about, college is the plan. It's not possible. It's the plan. I don't remember exactly how that was worded, but we drive these messages into these kids like, you are going to a 4-year college. And it has had an impact on we have a shortage of tradespeople. Yeah. Now, like, there's a backlash that we're all experiencing. But even though you and I, as mature adults who are well into our career, closer to retirement than we are starting our career, we can still see the degree to which, and we have an appreciation for the trades, and we think that that's a viable option. And that's something we, like you said, we talk to our son about, like, hey man, you're good with your hands. Go do this. Go make 6 figures doing this. Be an electrician. Be a welder. Do something like that.
He had a friend who was going through an apprenticeship for electrical engineering. This young man is attending a 4-year college. He's one of Joey's good friends, but he also earned a lot of money being an electrician. And his goal is to come out of college, but then also get his master electrician. He's really into home building, that sort of thing. So we were like, very much like, you do not have to go to a 4-year college. I mean, like I said, with the medical situation, there's a lot of opportunities out there that is just, you just pay for the information you want. And I even reminded him, I did not finish my 4-year degree. I quit. I moved with you. I went to cooking school, loved it, made great grades. I didn't have to have a bunch of other bullshit. I didn't have to write papers. The math I did, I'm not great at math, but the math I did was like, practical math used in the cooking industry. I cleared that, no problem. Like, we tried to tell him all these examples, but then I think the pressure piece of it was societal, but it wasn't so much as the societal as in like the bigger society. It was family asking questions about it, his friends.
Beyond you and me.
Yes.
Yeah.
His extended family, grandparents, cousins, or whatever, There was a few questions, obviously, from people that we were close with in our circle that would ask. Also, like, friends. And he knew people that were going to other colleges, and then there start to come in I'm going to sign early, I'm going to commit to a school early. And so he's just seeing his other classmates, not even close friends, like getting these scholarships, and it's being made public to their class and to the high school community. Like, such and such got a free ride because they signed an athletic scholarship to this. And then I think he started thinking about, well, where am I going to meet friends? How am I going to interact with people my own age if I take a year off, or if I do a trade school, or if I just go to work for a company, to like ground up construction thing. Like, he started having these feelings of like he's going to miss out on something if he doesn't do it. And I applaud that. I mean, sometimes I do feel like I have, I used to, not as much anymore, not in the last 15 years. I think when you and I have gotten older, we understand. But I was like, I feel like I missed out on not completing my degree or going back for it. And
the social aspect.
But also just that feeling accomplished, feeling like I did it. But then I'm like, I'm not going to waste money because I wouldn't have enjoyed it anyhow.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have liked it. There's nothing that I, would really want to go back for it. So I just think like he just looked at it like it was this social thing he had to do to keep friends and make new friends. I think that he just felt like it was what was expected of someone. He also had pressure from, I think it wasn't so much people were saying to him. I felt like he felt there was pressure from extended family. He talked about all of his cousins going to college. What if I'm the only one that doesn't? And I said, so what if you're the only one that does it? You're the one that's not going to have like a college debt or spend all of, this ton of money, and you're going to be earning money earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, the pressure, if you haven't been through it with a high school or transitioning to college, then it's hard to describe it, or hard to really, I mean, it would be impossible to overemphasize, I think, how much pressure these kids are under. And if you've made that transition with a kid who knew what they wanted to do and there was never a question, then maybe you haven't experienced it either. But for many, many kids who just aren't sure and feel the weight of the absolute world on their shoulders to, at age 18, determine what they want to be for the rest of their life, what's striking to me about it is no amount of work to alleviate the pressure from us could overcome the amount of cultural pressure that existed. I mean, I had so many conversations with them about how nobody I know works in their degree field anymore. You can go get a 4-year degree. It just proves you know how to learn. It doesn't, maybe you start out in that field, but you'll transition to something else. Most everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, we had so many lists of people. We had like examples. We said, live with us, like get a job, do this, do that, don't do this. Like, I don't know how we could have made it more clear that we were going to be open for anything. But I felt he feels like there would have been a sense of embarrassment, and he would be letting down parts of the family if he didn't go.
One more example I want to bring into the conversation. I did a writing group locally. A friend asked me to lead a writing group for a group of, I guess they were recent college graduates, so young 20s, who were part of a program. It wasn't Peace Corps at all, but think Peace Corps. It was a group, they were going to spend a year volunteering and doing
AmeriCorps?
community service. It wasn't AmeriCorps either. I don't really want to name it. But yeah, think along those lines. Peace Corps, AmeriCorps. They were going to dedicate their next year to service. And when I met these young people, like I said, 22-ish, I think, they were from all around the world. All of them spoke English, but they were definitely from all around the world. And they all, every single one of them, the writing prompt was something about what are you going to do next or something. Every one of them talked about the pressure that they felt and the stress to volunteer for a year, and they were afraid they were going to fall behind or that it would be wasted or that they would come out at the end of the year and they wouldn't be further down the path toward this picture of success that they had. And so just by serving their community or a community for a year, they were so scared it was going to be wasted and it wasn't going to be going toward this lofty end goal. And it was fascinating to me to hear these people I had never met before from all around the world all express the same feeling that I can describe. I can think of no better word to describe it than just intense pressure. Like unhealthy levels of intense pressure. And it's scary, but it's also fascinating to me. Where is this coming from? So let's talk a little bit about what the causes might be, and then we'll tie it in. We won't spend a lot of time on that because we have our experiences that we have lived through and the relationships that we've built with other people where we see them under this pressure. But I think this is a lot of conjecture as far as the cause. What I do want to talk about is the possible solutions, which we have to offer. So there's some combination of COVID and technology that have created this stress. One idea that I have, I love your idea that you never see failure. You only see the ultimate end game, and you don't realize how many hours go into that. That's a really good point, Sheri. I also think when you and I grew up, there were like celebrities. There was like Harrison Ford doing Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars movies. I never sat around and thought, I want to be Harrison Ford. I thought, he is on some, well, I did when I was a little kid, right? When I was a little kid.
You wanted to be Robin. You didn't want to be Batman.
I did want to be Robin. But, once you start really thinking about career and future and family and adulthood, I didn't sit around. And I don't think I was unique. I didn't sit around and think, I want to be the most famous, I don't want to be Michael Jackson. I didn't sit around and dream. Like that just looked lofty and unachievable. Mm-hmm. And I think what's happened with the internet is there's this other layer of success, notoriety, fame, clicks, views, whatever, that does feel very achievable, but you have to not only have talent, you also have to have a lot of luck. The algorithm has to pick you up, the wind has to blow just right. And people see people achieve that level and they think, I'm a failure if I can't achieve that level. You know what I mean? It's like there's a middle ground now that didn't used to exist. Influencers, YouTubers, TikTokers. I've known, especially on the girls' side, girl soccer players who have gotten this kind of viral TikTok following. And I watch them make the videos while we're waiting out a rain delay. They've got the phone propped up against a door push bar, and they choreograph this literally 15-second dance that they do with their friends, and they get thousands or tens of thousands or whatever views, and they become these TikTok stars. And I'm not saying they're not talented and they're not, adorable or whatever. Like, good for you, but the luck and the creativity kind of mix, and boom, off you go. And I think other people look at that and say, if I can't do that, I'm a failure. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know what to think about it because I wouldn't care. There are people that are my age that are doing things that I do on a daily basis, and I don't say I'm going to put a camera up and record me doing it, that's just not how I was brought up, so I don't even know how to respond to that. How can I even care? I could care less.
Yeah.
but that's not the
But
way.
do you hear how healthy that sounds? You could care less.
Yeah.
Do you think adolescents feel that way, or young adults?
I'm sure that if I was a teen today, I'd be feeling just that way too. Because it's, because it's just so in your face, and it's just like, oh, well, this must be normal. This must be normal. This must be normal, because it's in your face all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the two younger kids said that one of their careers, they wanted to be a YouTuber, and we hear that from like
all the time.
Younger kids, like early elementary. They don't even know what it means. I want to be a YouTuber. What do you want to be a YouTuber about? Like, I don't.
Yeah, and I think our generation sometimes does a disservice, because you'll see older people talk and be like, the aspirational career when I was coming up was engineer, and now these kids want to be YouTubers. What a waste! Like,
well, I just remember.
I don't think we should scoff at that. This is real. This is negatively impacting the mental health of literally millions and millions of.
Well, I mean, even
kids.
just like, I feel like Tiger Woods was like the phenomenon, back when he started. And I remember he and your sister are the same age.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And your dad, who
he
loves
wanted my
golf.
sister to be Tiger Woods?
God, you make telling a story so easy.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll be quiet.
God. But I just remember, like, one time there was a joke when we were on vacation together. And I don't think he was, like, comparing her to Tiger Woods, but he was like, look, Joanna, Tiger Woods is your age, and look what he's accomplished.
Oh my God.
Well, but no, like, you have no idea probably the torment and the hell that this little Tiger went through to be where he was at that time. His dad pressured him and pushed him to be on the golf course,
I've read a couple books. It was not a pleasant upbringing.
Yeah, so I'm like, but like, oh, because he's young and taking the nation by storm with his golfing abilities, let's make sure to compare people. I mean, and the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, they were a phenomenon on the tennis court. And I mean, it's made golf and tennis more obtainable for young kids, more desirable for young kids. And I will say this as eloquently as I can, people of color are actually getting into those sports where they always felt like it was a white country club sport. And they're like, oh, I can do this too, because they are seeing themselves.
More accessible.
Yes, more accessible. They're seeing themselves in that. And I think that's great, but that doesn't mean just because you go to play tennis that you have to become Serena or Venus.
That's right.
And I'm dating myself because I can't think of anybody new now. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can remember. I can
I'd
see a
like to
face
help
of
you,
somebody.
I'm not just staying out of this because you chastised me for interrupting you. I don't know any new tennis players
I'm like seeing her
or
face
golfers either.
But I'm just like, I feel like there's always been, when there's been somebody great, but I think nowadays people are just absorbing it more because of the social media and internet.
Yeah.
You're seeing all their wins. You're not seeing all their quote unquote failures, which was their learning experiences and how to go about better.
I just don't think I don't think we used to be able to connect the dots. We would look at the most famous of the most famous and say, yeah, I'm going to do the thing I'm going to do because I enjoy doing it, not because I'm trying to get there. I can't get there. And that's not even like, I didn't lose any sleep over that. I didn't have negative mental health because I couldn't become, I used it earlier, Michael Jackson or Harrison Ford. I didn't give it a second thought. I was like, cool, I get to go to the movies or listen to music and I get to enjoy these people. I'll never be that. And I don't care. Even sports stars, I never thought, I want to be Dan Marino. I was like, wow, he can spin it, man. That's impressive. He's who he is. I'm not going to be that. And now I think there's almost like a ladder system. Like, oh, if I get to this, then I can get to this, and then I can get to this, and then I can be the most famous person in the world. I don't know. I think that's part of it. I think you also make, again, back to your point about not seeing the failures and only seeing the successes. That I think your point's probably better. I think that puts a ton of pressure on these kids.
I think it even does for the parents. I mean, think about how many youth sports are being it's they're packed and they're expensive. And if your kid's not on club, they're never going anywhere. I mean, even the parents are getting sucked in with this.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that's a
whole
other,
yeah.
it's
But
bad. It's
I think
bad
it's
for their mental health.
I think
It's
it's
so much
just
pressure
as
on the kids.
much the parents aren't seeing the sacrifice that go into it. They feel like the sacrifice is going to be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, it's a status thing for a lot of the parents. My kid's on, this ECNL, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, my kid plays rec league and I don't give a fuck. And you know what? I got more money in my pocket.
Yeah, and guess what? Once they're in their mid-20s, none of them are going to be playing other than, some adult pickup league, which is super fun, and I hope you keep playing. But
intramurals in college, lots of fun.
Nobody's going to hear their anthem at the Olympics anytime soon. Not played for them anyway. So okay. I think we've established that the pressure exists. The question is, what can we do about it? I think, the last thing I want to do is get into politics right now, but I will say this. If you think the government is going to fix this for us, you have another thing coming. That is just not, we do not have a functioning democracy to the degree that this is going to be high on the radar and that solutions are going to be forthcoming anytime soon about these mental health crises that we're really dealing with. So we've got to do our own part. I think what has happened is as society has advanced, like I went through earlier, indoor plumbing, an abundance of food, an abundance of pleasure items. As society has advanced, our culture has not. And we still have this kind of cultural idea that we've got to toughen these kids up and we've got to prepare them for the harsh realities of the outside world. I don't think that's the right way to prepare kids anymore. And I say this again, not as a mental health professional, but you and I have a ton of exposure to a ton of different kids, not only our own, but the kids that we work with our jobs and volunteer activities. And I think home needs to be an ultra emotionally safe place. One of the reasons I say that is because as I got sober, almost 9 years ago now, and not right away, I had to get through the early sobriety period. As I started to learn and mature emotionally, and we started to create an environment of safety in our home, we have seen the impact that's had on our kids. I think our kids are more emotionally grounded, are more realistic, feel more comfortable expressing themselves, being themselves. I think that's the ultimate. I think instead of home being a place where you learn work ethic, I think home has to be the place where you can come and kind of devolve and be yourself and know there'll be no ridicule, no teasing, because it used to be you went out into the world and you had to deal with your peer group, but then that was it. You didn't pull out a device from your pocket and spend 3 hours comparing yourself to other people out there in the world who are only putting their photos and videos of their successes and not showing the work and the toil that goes in the background, to your point. I think now the exposure to comparison, the exposure to the stress, the exposure to the lofty goals, and you're not good enough unless you can succeed like all these people you're looking at, all of that is everywhere. Home, we have to transition. Culture has to catch up to society, and home has to be this ultimately safe place where emotional needs are being met, boys and girls. And we just can't expect kids to go through traumatic childhoods and have successful outcomes anymore because the outside world is such a traumatic place to be. Home has to be ultimately safe. And so what that means, I think, is getting out of alcoholic relationships, getting alcohol out of the home altogether, uncomfortable conversations with kids to make them know that their self-worth cannot be defined by whether or not they become a YouTuber. Their self-worth has to be they have to know that they are loved, and they have to know that they are good enough just because they exist, not because of some accomplishment they make. And so I think a lot of what has gone into growing up in our culture has to go away. I think teasing within the household has to go away. I think lofty grade expectations, that we have to temper that. I'm not saying, that we should give up on our kids and that we shouldn't motivate them to succeed, but they're getting so much external pressure to succeed now that didn't used to exist, that I don't think we need to do that as much anymore.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think having some sort of obtainable goal, whether it be like, okay, say you're a sophomore in high school and you hope that, by the time you're either a junior or, you're a sophomore sport, like you hope that you make varsity, but I'm not going to be crushed if I'm on JV. Like I think those having goals like that, or being able to play a piece on a musical instrument to do well at solo ensemble, I think it's great to have obtainable goals and things that give you pleasure, that you are really enjoying what you're doing. I think those are fine and encouraged, because there is a self-worth of the practice. And again, as long as it's something that's giving the kids pleasure, really letting them choose what activities they want to be involved in based on their own dopamine hits from these natural things. We've got kids that have a lot of differences of talents and enjoyment. So parents stepping back and not making pressure on their kids to perform at a level that they just can't, because they're just not ready.
Our second oldest child is a senior in college, and he has been playing guitar and bass guitar in a band, in various bands, for years now. And I think you and I have been very careful to encourage him. We go to his shows when he plays in bars and restaurants here in Denver. But our encouragement has always been, man, you look like you're having fun up there. Keep having fun. Your band members they're so much fun to be around. I bet that's a blast. I bet making music is fun. Not, gosh, do you think you'll make it?
Yeah.
And I think that distinction is so important now. I was in a fraternity in college, and a couple of my fraternity brothers played music, and they still do. They both have law degrees. They practice law, but they also play music on the weekends in bars and restaurants around Chicago and Indianapolis. And I think they are a great example. Like, they don't consider themselves failures because they never made the top 40, or they weren't able to make $1 zillion playing music. They kept it in their life because they enjoy doing it. And they have been, I think they've been the epitome of successful, because they've done something else to raise their family and to make enough money, but they've kept music in their lives. And I think that's what we've got to encourage kids to do. We've got to take the pressure off. We just have to, whatever. So if you get nothing else out of this discussion other than, I got to think about the kids around me, the kids in my sphere, the kids that are mine, but also the kids I interact with, and I got to think of ways to take the pressure off of them. If that's all you get out of this discussion, please do. I thought about home as home base. When you play the game of tag, which I don't know gets played very much anymore, maybe it does. There's always a home base, right? If you're holding on to the jungle gym, you're on home base and you can't be tagged.
And that's where you're safe.
Home needs to be that now.
Yeah.
Home can't be the place where you deal with some stress, so that in the idea that we're going to motivate you to be successful out there in the big bad world, there's plenty of stress. You don't need to apply stress to kids anymore.
Yeah.
If they're upright and taking nourishment, as old people like to say, then they're under stress. They're under an incredible amount of stress. Home has to be home base. So I want to go back to when we promoted taking the survey. Here's a specific tip I think people can do. Something that you and I have tried to implement with our kids. Kids have access to so much more information. So the internet's a double-edged sword. There is the comparison thing that is sad and it's putting all the stress on kids. But they also have access to an incredible amount of information, and they can go down rabbit holes on anything they want to and learn so much.
Kids, adults too.
If you have kids in your life, make it a point to learn something from them. Humble yourself. Get rid of this generational piece where I'm older, so I can't ever admit to you knowing more than me. Don't just indulge them dismissively. Oh yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about the history of the ukulele, Johnny. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be really interesting. If that's what they're into, show some interest. Don't do it dismissively. Learn from them and be legitimately interested. Don't rush to the internet yourself and contradict all the points they make. That's a very generational thing to do. I can't learn from you, so let me prove you wrong. Even if they're talking about economics or politics or something that you think you know like the back of your hand, show some interest in what they're sharing. How can that possibly hurt if you take interest and learn from a generation lower or younger than you to help build their self-esteem and confidence and make them feel good about themselves? Because if we don't acknowledge we are in the middle of a mental health crisis, then we're just blind. And this is the mental health crisis that leads to things like deaths of despair and addiction. And so I think when we talk about alcoholism, which is something we talk a lot about specifically on this podcast, we have to look at what can we do to prevent it, not just to recover from it. And so I wanted to spend some time today talking about the kids out there, the kids and young adults, and helping them to avoid falling into the same trap that you and I did when the inputs they're dealing with are so much different than what you and I dealt with when we were in their shoes. Mm-hmm. Thanks for having a great conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Did you hear something today that you relate to? Did the conversation resonate for you? If the answer is yes, then I'm sure there's someone in your orbit who could benefit from this conversation too. One of the very best things you can do for your healing is to become part of the solution, crush the stigma, participate in the conversation. Maybe you aren't ready to join one of our groups, but that doesn't mean you can't be involved in a meaningful way. All we are asking is this. Please share this episode with one person. Copy the link and send a text or email. Put it on your social media. Be bold. Claim that sense of belonging you deserve. Just one share. Thank you for listening to the Untoxicated Podcast. You've got this, and we've got you.